Oh, guys. So I reckon I always wear this fucking tank top and the same pants on like all the videos, and that's because I tend to do this right after I've been to the gym because time and shit like that. Uh, Today we're gonna talk about topics we already touched, but maybe a little bit more. I got questions about this, even though there are some kind of a video content about it. But let's go on. Turbine housings. That's one thing. Turbine housing. This is all about size, and size does matter. It doesn't matter what your wife says. Turbine housing, it's the opposite. Yeah, whatever. So, small turbine housing, faster response, and so on. But, and there's always a fucking but. There's not such a difference as you can think. So we had a few turbo setups during the years that we have swapped turbine housing on, from like all the way, from 086 to 048 with like a 63, 64 in the middle. And depending on your setup, of course, but the difference might not be as big as you think. And for us in a couple of occasions, this has been very true. But, and there's a second but in this. When we're talking about the diesel engines like the 604, 5 and 6, or the 123, doesn't matter. There's a real problem building boost. And I don't really mean the spool. It's more that you can have the exact same setup and you change to a smaller turbine housing and you do 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 bars more. Because these fucking engines, they need some kind of resistance. It's like with all turbo cars, diesel or petrol, it doesn't matter. If you go uphill, you will have a lot better response in your engine than you have on flat ground. So, I mean, and when you have a stock car that's controlled by a mass airflow meter, whatever, a MAF. When it's controlled by a MAF and you have a turbo gauge in it, you can see that the car actually puts on boost going uphill, just to keep the car going. And it's really interesting. So a smaller turbine housing is not wrong in these engines. It is a really good benefit actually to have a smaller housing, but the spool will not be so much better. Only the, what we're gonna call it, overall characteristics of the engine. You will boost more with the same setup and so on. And it's really, really interesting actually. So don't be afraid, if you have a Holset HX35, can I use the number 10 exhaust house, the turbine housing? Yes, you can. You can use a number 8. You will notice when shit is too small. And it's not really the opposite. When you have a really big fucking turbine housing, you can still think that my car pulls good. So it's not, you can't really see or feel that it's too big. But when you go too small, you will notice it. So it's no danger in just swapping down. So that's turbine housing, as small as you can. I mean, that's the thing. I had a chat with a turbo professor about AR, but yeah, I think I talk to him first and we'll make another video about that because that's really interesting. Next on the list, it's charge pipes, and this we have talked about at least once, but I think we touched the subject in a couple of times before. So, do you need 3-inch charge pipes on your car? And charge pipes for you might not be the same as for me, I don't know. So it's the fucking pipe that goes from your turbo to your intercooler and from your intercooler to your intake. These pipes, do they need to be 3-inch? No. On your turbo today, your outlet from the turbo is probably 2-inch. So if the manufacturer thinks that 2-inch is good as an outlet from your turbo, 2-inch is maybe not so small. Now 2-inch is very small, so I don't really recommend you to run a 2-inch pipe because we talked about this, friction in materials, and the longer the material is, the pipe in this case, the more friction we have. So we can't really use a 2-inch pipe if it's not really fucking short, of course. But 2.5-inch. 2.5-inch is what you need. You rarely need more than 2.5-inch. On some extreme builds you have to do 3-inch, yes. But then you're pushing 4-digit horsepowers. So 2.5-inch is the go-to size for the 601, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 601, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So 2.5-inch intercooler. That's also really interesting because that's like a part of your charge pipe. And we normally go for a 3-inch intercooler. Yes, because we need the surface area to cool the air down, but with fittings that are 2.5-inch, so we don't have to do this fucking I don't even know what it's called, the silicone hose that are 3-inch in one end and 2.5 in the other. Doesn't matter, we don't have to do that. We can just put everything on as it's supposed to be, and everything looks good and works. And it works if it's 3-inch fittings also. It is not that, it's just more simple. So 2.5-inch fittings and 3-inch core, that's what we normally go with. And sizes other than that we talked about, you don't use yay big intercooler on your 300 horsepower build because that's no bueno. You need a proper size for the build you're doing. And this, you log your intake air temperature, and if it goes up, you change to a bigger one. Simple as that. So charge pipe 2.5-inch, as short as possible, of course, but it's really hard in a car to do them too long or too short or whatever. You go from your turbo to the front where your intercooler is, and from the intercooler to the intake. I told this in another video, I really like the Mercedes stock charge pipe on the cold side, on the intake side, because it's bolted to the block, and you can't make it any cleaner, and it's not obstructing anything, it's not in the way of anything else, it's just bolted to the block, you don't see it, you don't have to care about it. That's a really good one. So I like to use them on the intake side, and that's pretty much it. Intercooler to that pipe and you're done. So it is as short as it can, and it's very hard to make it too long. I've seen some some builds where people, I don't really know the reason for it, but maybe they just can't get a bigger intercooler and they put like two intercoolers stacked on each other. So they run the intake on one side, or from the turbo to one side, and then like a pipe that connects the two, so they come out on the same side as the turbo, and then they have to do a pipe all the way back and then to the intake. And that's of course one way of doing the charge piping too long. You don't have to do that. You can just buy a bigger core. Or of course, if you have a 617, you have the intake and exhaust on the same side of the engine, then this is a very sweet setup. And doing it the other way is making too long of a charge pipe. So, I mean, it's all good for the build you do. You have to think about that. Turbine housings, opposite of what your wife wants, small, right? Charge pipe, also. So this is like the feminist version of car making. So no, it's not, because because everything is small fucking charge pipe, short charge pipes, and small turbine housings in the casting couch. So now we know it, that everything needs to be as small as possible to keep everyone happy. We're running 12 minutes, and that's it for today. Next time we have some new bullshit to talk about. See you then.